Hey, welcome back to the Garage Warlord Show. It's someday in September. It's a Monday. September, I don't know, 19th, 20th, something like that. Just hanging out here. Um, just found this Eerie Publications magazine that I need to put with the rest of them. It's a copy of Tales from the Tomb. Uh, September of 1973. So this was the summer before I started third grade. And I remember being at Regency Place Elementary School in San Antonio, Texas. And I remember the first kid that discovered these Eerie Publications magazines. And I think he brought one to school, and we were just like, what is that? Because these were not easily findable. You had to go to the sleaziest places to find these. Um, and I don't remember where he said he went to find it. It was not a stop and go or a 7-Eleven. It was one of these probably like Lone Star Drive-In or something. Um, yeah, convenience stores in San Antonio, as I recall, it's like a regional thing. They call them ice houses. And there were some that were kind of a lower tier, and they would have different distributors that would bring in things like this. Now, this is one of the more tame covers, but Eerie Publications had a tendency to have extremely gory covers, and the interiors were 50 stories that were traced or sometimes not even traced, but they got some liquid paper out and altered the art to add in more blood. But these were something I mean, I saw the Warren publications, Creepy and Eerie, occasionally in San Antonio when we lived in. I don't. It's not that they weren't distributed in San Antonio. It's just the stores that my mother took me to as a third and fourth grader weren't the stores that had them. But I know they were there. They were downtown and in different kinds of stores than what we went to. Here's another magazine. I now that one I bought. I don't know at some point in the last 10, 20 years. Not back then. This was a magazine I was happy to get back when I was in fourth grade. Airport 1975. Here's the big all-star cast. Now the movie Airport kind of started the disaster movie craze. It came out in 1970, and then I think Poseidon Adventure came along in 1972. And then when that was a big hit, the movie studios all started making disaster movies, and it took them a little while to make them, and they were all coming out right about 1974, 75. So there was an explosion of disaster movies. There was Earthquake that was released in Sense-Around, where they had these speakers in the movie theater that played the sound at such a vibrational level that it made you feel like you were in an earthquake. And I remember my mother wouldn't let me go see that movie because she thought that this Sense-Around, this sound system would be bad for your ears or something. I don't know. There was the Towering Inferno. That one I did get to go see, and I actually went to see that on my own. I was dropped off at the theater. I bought my own ticket. I felt really adult. Same thing with Airport 75. I saw that at the same theater that's probably been bulldozed by now. But Airport 75 was the sequel to the 1970 Airport. And there was Towering Inferno, okay, Earthquake, and there was a third one. Earthquake, Towering Inferno, and Airport 75. Those were the three main ones that came out right about the same time. And that was the explosion of the disaster movie craze. It seems like there was another one. But there were it was just the big deal to have disaster movies with an all-star cast. And then Jaws came out and kind of killed off the disaster movie craze, and everyone started making either movies about other, movies about. They made Orca that no one ever saw about a killer whale. And then someone made a movie Grizzly about a killer bear, and these were all not as big a hits. They all came out, and then there was one about worms, Squirm. There was Swarm about killer bees. And there was a late period, right about the time Jaws came out. There was a Japanese movie that was imported into the United States, and it was called Tidal Wave. And it had a big advertising campaign, and they got Lauren Green to come in and film some scenes that they could add in to try to fool people into thinking it was an American movie. And a lot of people went to see that movie because everyone was real jazzed about disaster movies, and then people realized, oh, it's a Japanese movie, and that was at the very tail end of the disaster movies. And then, but this was something I was really into. I remember I bought the soundtrack album because my older brother bought the soundtrack to Airport when that came out in 1970, and we were living in Germany, and I would put that Airport soundtrack on the Telefunken stereo, and I just love the opening scene. There's the opening credits. They're de-icing all these planes. There's a snowstorm, a tremendous snowstorm at this airport, and the music they're playing, the theme from Airport, is one of the greatest. You just look it up on YouTube. Type in Airport main theme. When I was a kid and I read the Fantastic Four comics, I thought that would be a great theme for the Fantastic Four if that was made into a movie. And then later I thought, if you ever hear, there's another piece of music to look up. Look up the main theme to Honor Her Majesty's Secret Service, the James Bond movie. That would be a great theme for a Fantastic Four movie. Or just a superhero movie. I think I think that there was a trailer for The Incredibles, which is basically a Fantastic Four movie, where they used that Honor Her Majesty's Secret Service theme. Anyway, so we're up to 411 subscribers, so a toast to you guys. Did a live stream yesterday that was Meyer Greenblatt appeared. That was cool. You should tune that in. And I was on a live stream with Hoarder Mike that I'm afraid I might have derailed into a political discussion, but I don't know. I don't remember how it derailed from talking about Vampirella to talking about the New World Order, but it had to have been me. So, anyway, here's Kazanda, the Wild Girl and the Lost Continent. I showed this the other day on Graphic Man's channel. It's something I picked up. I have no idea where or when, but it was $2 from Famous Films and Funnies, Clayton Publications in Wilson, North Carolina. Kazanda, the Wild Girl and the Lost Continent, copyright 1939, 1970, copyright in Great Britain. So apparently this must have been a British comic strip that looks to be sort of Flash Gordon-like, that was put out in England, and then some guys in North Carolina in 1970 reprinted it. I don't know where this was sold. It looks to be kind of fanzine-like. It probably was sold, I'm imagining, through, ads maybe in the back of Rocket Blast Comic Collector or something, but it's great. It's Jungle Girl and Flash Gordon looking kind of Alex Raymond, very Alex Raymond inspired. Alex Raymond inspired everybody. You know, there wouldn't really be uh, everything we love if it wasn't for Alex Raymond and Flash Gordon. I mean, that he inspired all the greats, Jack Kirby, all those people. Um, this is Larry Ivy was a fan. This magazine got national distribution. It's Monsters and Heroes, and this one has Flash Gordon and John Carter. You know, look at this. Princess of Mars, the first of the John Carter books I used to use in the classroom. And of course, John Carter inspired Flash Gordon and inspired Superman, along with the novel Gladiator. But there's a lot of John Carter in Superman, as far as a guy on another planet that has powers because he's on this other planet with less gravity, and he wears a red cape and can leap tall buildings at a single bound. Because originally Superman couldn't fly. Originally Superman just jumped. But you guys know that. I like these sketches. This is just a really great magazine. There's this article, "The Monsters of Mars." Some of these more fan publications that competed. I mean, this is Famous Monsters inspired, but when the fans see, Forrest J. Ackerman put out Famous Monsters, and that was the original. And Forrest J. Ackerman had such a unparalleled collection of movie stills that the pictures that you saw in Famous Monsters, none of the other publications had that depth of thousands of pictures of Boris Karloff, you know, as the monster or this or that, and from obscure movies, from Metropolis, whatever. He had all that. The problem is he published it, and then I guess to make sure that parents and teachers weren't too threatened by his magazine, he made it all funny and lots of puns and jokes that really weren't funny. You know, it's like nerd humor. You know, sometimes you go to a comic store and these people that aren't really funny are trying to be funny, the clerks, you know, and you're looking at comics, but you have to hear their conversation. And they're not funny and telling you, so that's kind of. But anyway, most people didn't really, kids didn't really, I guess they read the articles and cringed in Famous Monsters, but they were there for the pictures and the wonderful production design of that magazine. But these other magazines, like this one and Castle of Frankenstein and some others, even Monster Times in the '70s, were written in with a far more literate way and were a lot more fun to read. Look at this. I love how the Tharks here, this illustration, it shows the scale between the Martian horses, and which all had 8 legs, and the Martian men that had 4 arms. Here they're drawn as basically having 2 torsos, which I guess you could. I mean, Edgar Rice Burroughs didn't describe. I mean, that could fit Edgar Rice Burroughs' description, but just great stuff on Flash Gordon. The movie serials, the original comic strip. There it shows this picture here. It's posing the model, and then you see how it wound up in the actual comic strip. Yeah, I've just been digging through and finding different magazines. These are things I think I showed them on Wednesday night on Graphic Man's show, but just in case there's someone that is foolish enough to watch this show but not watch the Graphic Man show, I'll show them again here. Let's see what's in this box. Okay, these are Hot Rod magazines. This is not exclusively comic book channel. I'm not going to be one of these people that tells you, yes, I went to the estate sale and found the first appearance of in Iron Fist, the first appearance of what's his fucking face, and there's spine ticks, but with a good clean and press, I think this would be a 7.5, and I will just do that and submit it to CGC, and I think I can get this much money from it. And anyway, I was the first to arrive at the estate sale, and I found wonderful treasure trove. I found Moon Knight #1 for $6. I think with a clean and press. Look, it doesn't have spine ticks on a black covering. Because, I'd rather talk about things that were important to me in my childhood and tell you, hey, I bought this at Stop and Go in April of my 3rd grade year, and look at this is my childhood copy, and this means something to me, instead of I just bought this on eBay from mycomicshop.com. I'm going to clean and press it and submit it to CGC and have it encased in plastic so it can never be opened again. And that if I did that, I'd have thousands of subscribers. But yeah, well, that ain't me, man. This is a magazine called Gearhead. This is kind of a cross between, this is kind of, is this the 1990s? I'm thinking it was. 1995, yeah, there's an ad for the makers. This is kind of I don't want to use the word hipster, because that has negative connotations, but this one is an overall cultural hot rod magazine. If you look at the hot rod magazines from the 50s and 60s, which I can show to you here in a minute, they pretty much concentrate on the cars and the engines, and there's a little bit of the Rat Fink kind of Big Daddy Roth kind of stuff, but in this 90s kind of stuff, it's all about not just the cars, but the music. This is spring of 1995. Yeah, it's got, all these record ads that you wouldn't see in the old hot rod magazines for really cool bands that are all kind of inspired by the 60s, like this girl, April March. Look her up. She was great. She was a cartoonist that worked for Ren and Stimpy for John Cristofalusi, and she put out these great records that were mostly inspired by French girl singers from the 60s, and she took this French song that was sung by I forget who in the 1960s, and it was a French girl, one of the French those great French girl singers, and she sang the original French version, and then she converted it into English, and it was a song called Chick Habit. And I remember buying the single of that and thinking, this is one of the greatest songs I've ever heard. Chick Habit by April March. Look it up. And then years later, 15 years later, I guess, that guy that compiles everything around him into movies, Quentin Tarantino, used that great song during the closing credits of Death Proof, which was the best thing about that movie, is the song that plays at the end. So yeah, this is a lot of, goddamn, I hate when I say so yeah. So yeah, moving forward, there's lots of bands about, there's lots of articles, I'm really tired, lots of articles about bands. I woke up at 5 minutes after 5 and realized, oh, the Queen's funeral is on. And so we turned it on, and I didn't get back to sleep. I tried to close, but it's kind of cool, some of the music they were playing. It's like, I was telling my wife, that sounds like the end of Beneath the Planet of the Apes when they're worshiping the atomic bomb. She says, what are you talking about? And it's like, oh, this sounds like Star Wars. This sounds like the throne room at the end of. She doesn't know what I'm talking about. And some of the music they were playing was pretty cool. These Illuminati bastards. It's pretty spectacular ceremony. Yeah. Um, so I was thinking, are they just gonna like coronate Charles later today? But apparently they need months to schedule that, so it's going to be in June that they actually, I guess, do the coronation. Because I read that when the Queen that just passed away, when she was coronated, it wasn't until she'd already been Queen for like 16 months or something like, I don't know. Who cares? They're a bunch of scum. But uh, and there's supposed to be. There's all these rumors on the internet that something wonderful and horrible is supposed to happen this weekend. Have you heard about that? It's supposed to be the 24th or 25th that all the bad guys are just going to be held to account, and then wonderful things are going to happen. It's just all this weekend, I guess. So the Munsters, Juxtaposed magazine was like an outsider art, no, lowbrow art kind of magazine. And of course, Robert Williams, the underground comics artist, was all into the hot rod culture. And what the fuck was I talking about? Yeah, see, they have comic art. This is an all around cultural magazine. For people into this stuff. Let's see what we got here. So where would you find this magazine? I don't know if it was on regular. Maybe it made it into Barnes and Noble, but I would find this like in punk rock record stores. Um, yeah, and this was something yeah, it's like Welcome to Beatsville. You know, I love this stuff. This is Mouse, who Stanley Mouse, they say he really was the real creator of Rat Fink, that it was kind of stolen from. Oh, and the 5, 6, 7, 8s, I was so into them. I still am. They were a Japanese girl band. The 5, 6, 7, 8s. Yeah, and then later Quentin Tarantino used them as the bar band right before this massacre in Kill Bill. And they were singing Woohoo, which is a rockabilly song by the Rocketeens from the 50s. So, yeah, people think Quentin Tarantino discovered all these bands. No, I was listening to his bands 15, 20 years before that idiot discovered them. He's all right, I guess. I think he's probably one of the bad guys. He was friends with Weinstein. This is a great beatnik glossary. I need to use this instead of, I have this cheat sheet in there of all the cool things to say, like moving forward and let's have a conversation. But this is better. Angel, one who pays the check. Axe is a musical instrument. Yeah, people still use that today. Ape means off your rocker. Beat is a way of life for select few. Beatnik, one who lives like no tomorrows. Beagle, tourist or a square. Blow your jets means to become angry. Bread is money, salary, compensation. That one's still around. Bugged, like crazy, bothered, annoyed. Yeah, it goes like that. Crazy means good, accepted. Cat is a cool jazz musician or a beatnik. Cyclops means eyeglasses. A dildo is a dippy dame. Dildo, Dildoe, with an E at the end. Turn up the stereo means listen to me. Turn up the stereo. Let's see, what's a... Nadaville is nowhere or a dull place. Pad is an apartment. People still use that. Moo juice, milk. Let's see. Juice means liquor. A juice head is one who drinks a lot. Kooky means a wild character, a far out person. A stable is a garage. Yeah, so they have a whole article on Mouse, Stanley Mouse. So, you can kind of tell that Big Daddy Roth kind of took from him. But he later went and did all those psychedelic Grateful Dead kind of posters in the later 60s. This is the early 60s that this stuff would have been around. Yeah, so this is Gearhead. Yeah, I knew some of the people in that band, Fireworks. They were out of Dallas. And see, this one has Coop, a cover by Coop, who was a really great artist, and he's a Satan worshiper. He likes to draw devil girls. I like his art, but unfortunately, that's one flaw. But see, he's got Betty Page there. It all ties in with what we like. This There's the Oblivions. That's Delana Tennell, who was a pinup girl. I saw a Batman movie with her. It was the really shitty one. It was the first of the shitty Batman movies that there was Batman Returns, and then it switched over to another director, and there was Batman Forever. There was one that had Two-Face, and that must have been Batman Forever that had the Riddler in it. I think that must have been the one. Then it went completely off the rails with the Schwarzenegger movie, Batman. Oh, that was terrible. Okay, yeah, that's. Yeah, I was just hanging out with her. She was a friend. She worked at a record store here in Dallas. This is all the 1990s. Yeah, so this is Gearhead number 4. This is Gearhead number 3. Gearhead number 4. Oh, this one had a record inside it. I must have taken the record out. It must be in my record stash downstairs. Gearhead number 5. Bonneville, the Delphi story. Delphi was a record studio out of New Mexico, I think Clovis, New Mexico, and that's where they became big with Richie Valens. He was out on that record label, and Richie Valens, and then later with the Bobby Fuller Four, who were out of Texas, but they were on that label. So it basically is pinup girl culture, cars, music, and it looks like this is when. Yeah, the Super Suckers, I remember them. I saw them in concert. It ties in with the bubblegum cards and the Rat Fink culture and the music. There was a big revival of this in the 90s, and Hate. Fantagraphics was all part of it. It was just all. There was a big subculture in the 90s that worshipped everything cool. Hot rods, pinup girls, comic books, this punk rock music that was a throwback to the '60s surf music. It's just all here, and I guess that just kind of died out. But if you go to but it's and Southern Culture on the Skids was a great band. And look at what you got here. You've got the Dukes of Hazzard car, and then you've got a Jack Davis facsimile Frontline Combat EC cover. Look at this. So it's like, for a brief while, and I was putting out my magazine, The Sophisticate, about the same time, and it was a lot of the same culture that I had in my magazine, and it was just a time when everything was, there were a lot of people discovering what I'd always known about. And it's like, oh, this is cool. Everything that I've always loved is suddenly becoming cool, and there's people that are aware of it. Even if they're newcomers, it's okay. You love it, you're cool. I don't care that I knew about it before you. I mean, I guess I was bragging that I knew about a couple of bands before Quentin Tarantino, but, hey, if he loves it and he discovered it after me, I shouldn't be a snob. It's like the people, so I saw the Misfits in concert, and you weren't even born then, or, you buy your shirts at Hot Topic. Have you ever even really listened to the Ramones? You're wearing that shirt, but you weren't around to see the Ramones in concert, and I was. I saw Rock and Roll High School when it played at the Forum 303 Mall Theater. Well, yeah, what if they were growing up in some small town in Iowa, and that stuff's not on the radio, but somehow, through some Herculean effort, they found that music. And now with the internet, everyone can discover everything, and in one weekend, binging on YouTube, you can become a cool person. But yeah, this is when everybody, the girls were all trying to look a little Betty Page like, and it was, unfortunately, that it was part of it was that tattoo culture. I never got into that. I never got a tattoo. Nothing wrong with tattoos, but that's not but that, see, they got even ZZ Top is in here. Okay, so that's Gearhead number 6. I don't have a complete set. It looks like I started with 3. Then I got 3, 4, 5, 6. Here's Gearhead 7. Yeah, every girl looked like that there for a while. Oh, look at this. They've got now the Munsters movie comes out in about a week and a half on Netflix, and there were some people this morning on Facebook saying they saw the Munsters movie and they liked it, which shocked me. But apparently it's been leaked online and people are downloading it, and yeah, that's when the burlesque culture and the 50s pinup thing became big, and people started doing this neo burlesque and stuff. This girl was I always thought this girl was pretty cool. I forget her name. She's in the background in some videos by the Cramps. The Cramps were a big part of this. The Cramps were a band that started right at about 76, but they were, this guy Lex Interior, whose real name is Eric Perkeiser, was in Ohio, grew up in Ohio, loving man, would come to be a horror host and reading EC comics and early rock and roll, and I guess, he became a hippie and was hitchhiking, and met this cool redhead, and they decided to form a band, and they weren't hippies anymore. Because it was a radical thing for hippies to listen to rock and roll music in the late 60s, early 70s. Because rock and roll music, because we're not talking about rock music. Yeah, everyone was listening to rock music like Jimi Hendrix and the Grateful Dead. It was rock music, but rock and roll is the '50s stuff, which is more savage. It's like 3 minute, or even sometimes not even a 3 minute song, as opposed to 15-minute guitar solo, because rock had become more bloated. And so when John Waters is trying to shock people in the early 70s with his movies by making the soundtrack all 50s rock and roll, which he loved, that was just as shocking as Divine eating dog shit off the street to a hippie. They were like, rock and roll, that represents the 50s. That's what we're trying to get away from, that horrible world. But so the Cramps, that band formed, and they did rock and roll, and they were doing basically rockabilly and surf music, and a lot of it was cover versions of old songs that no one had ever heard because they'd never gotten played on the radio. Rockabilly songs about cutting off your girlfriend's head and hanging it on the wall. There were insane songs that came out back then, and so anyway, the Cramps were great, and they were for a while. The later period, before Lux passed away, I didn't like their last few albums as much. But Ghoulardi was the one that Lux Interior grew up watching, the horror host out of and his instead of saying get well, he would say stay sick. And see, this has influenced even this ad here. It says stay sick. Yeah, the Cramps were like and here's an article on Linda Vaughn. She was the Hearst shifter girl. So at the hot rod shows, this blonde with this gigantic Dolly Parton hair and boobs would always appear. Linda Vaughn, I think she might still be alive. This is an article on Linda Vaughn, and then there's articles in here about I guess an article about Motown Records. It's just and then this is music from old horror movie. That was another part I forgot is the movie element. Well, how I see, and then they've got like a pinup. Is at the same time people were discovering all these old monster movies and horror movies and exploitation movies and sexploitation movies, and a lot of these movies that had been forgotten. People were starting to discover through Something Weird Video was putting them out on VHS. They try to make their interviews look like an old Playboy interview. How did Dwayne Eddy get his sound? This is great stuff. It's fun to look through all these old books. Here's this girl, Jamie Wolf, reviewing records. It's all... I didn't really realize that this is all... Are there still a lot of people into this? I mean, they're all going to probably be in their 40s and 50s now, I guess. And of course, the original people into all this culture, the first go around are about 20 years older than that. But our young kids, our millennials, or whatever the generation coming up in high school now, is there any way for them to get exposed to this culture now? I don't know. I'm sure. I think there's going to be I'm almost positive you're going to see a huge backlash against all the programming that's being thrown at kids. They're being taught by their teachers, about pronouns and how they that men can have babies and stuff. And I think that some of them are just all for swallowing that Kool-Aid. But I think I when I was a kid, we kind of hated most of our teachers. I remember just a couple of teachers that I loved, and it's weird to think that that science teacher that was this young new science teacher when I was in junior high school in the late 70s. Okay, so let me think here. That was 40 something. Let's say that's 43 years ago. Okay, so she's probably 73 now. I mean, if she was 30 then, or maybe she was in her late 20s. So anyway, but it's just like all these, man. That most of the teachers, she was cute. I need to look her up maybe I'll find her. I should go look her up in the junior high school yearbook. I just saw it upstairs. And then when we were in high school, I had a geometry teacher that had been a cheerleader at the University of Texas at Austin, and she couldn't have been. She had to be late 20s. And I remember the PE coaches or the football coaches were always kind of stopping by her door, getting an excuse to, is there anything we can get for you? And they were always showing up at the door. And the first day of school, this asshole that sat next to me in the class he kept flicking quarters onto the floor while she was writing on the chalkboard. He'd flick a quarter on the floor behind her. He'd already flicked several quarters onto the floor. What are you doing? He says, I want to see her bend over to pick up the quarters. I need to look her up too. That would be at Arlington High School. Okay, so there's Gearhead. What the fuck? Okay, here's another copy of Gearhead. This is issue 11, so it doesn't look like I have every issue. But it's just this wasn't the only magazine that was put out back then worshiping this culture. There were a lot of and this band was great too, the Donnas. What month and year are we dealing with now? Yeah, I love the Donnas. This is spring 2001, so already into the 2000s. Man, spring 2001, so we're just a few months away from 9/11 here. The Donnas were a really cool band that they kind of sounded like a girl version of Kiss. Well, no, they started as a kind of a girl version of the Ramones, really, more than that. I think their first song that I really remember was great. I think it was called Rock and Roll Machine. Look up Rock and Roll Machine by the Donnas. That's a great song. But they started sounding like Ramones, and I think they wound up sounding more glam metal. There was so much great stuff. Yeah, that was the one I thought was the cutest, is Donna A. They all used the name Donna. That was their thing, like the Ramones all used the last name, the Ramones. So that was, I don't know if they're still around now, who knows, but this is reminding me of a lot of wonderful things. That at that same time period, the White Stripes came along. That was a great band. I'm always looking for new great music. And for a while, there were a lot of great bands. You were able to go out and see bands often that were great. It's just, unless I just don't know, and maybe there's great bands out now, I don't know. Then for a while, it just seemed like everything got really There was that emo movement, but anyway, that's Gearhead. And then there was another magazine by the same people called Girlyhead. Oh, something's falling out of it. Oh, they have a little extra in here called Sleepyhead. Oh, it's got like pinups in it. Miss Sleepyhead. It says Inside Dreams, Insomnia, Snooze. So there's the bed buggy. Top 10 dreamy songs. With You, the 13th Floor Elevators. Oh, they were a great band. Orbison, Blondie, Cheap Trick. Yeah, well, how about that? Oh, I forgot about this great artist, Mark Ryden. I really liked his art. Anyway, that's Poison Ivy. That's the redhead that was in the Cramps, that was the guitar player that I talked about earlier. And then people were discovering about this same time in the late 80s and in the 90s how great these old record albums that you could sometimes find in the thrift stores were. All these records that oftentimes had kind of girly type covers, but they were aimed at when hi-fi stereo first came out in the 50s and early 60s. They were aimed at these bachelors that bought these big hi-fi stereo systems, and they wanted to play this music to impress their dates. And it was extreme stereo, like extreme enhanced stereo, where shit comes out of this speaker and then this speaker, and it's just a wonderful, insane experience. And there were people like Juan Esquivel from Mexico that just look up Esquivel, Esquivel, and Perez Prado, Perez Prado, Prado. Listen to his music, and I was buying tons of that music, and then companies like Capitol realized this old shit that's in our catalog is starting to become popular with these hipsters, so they started putting out these lounge collections, these cocktail, what would they call ultra lounge. They put out probably 20 different volumes, because all of a sudden it's like Dean Martin's cool again, and it's like that's what now I'm remembering why I didn't buy as many comic books in the 90s, because I got into all this. I was buying records and everything, and I didn't give a shit about the Deadpool and the I've got a copy of that New Mutants with Deadpool on it that I must have gotten in a quarter bin or something. It's like, and then someone said, well, that's a real valuable issue. It's like, I didn't even realize Deadpool's on the cover. You can barely see him. He's like stretched out like a deer. It's real tall and skinny. That is really, yeah, I just thought it was an ugly time period. It's like I felt like all the characters that I love, like Ghost Rider and Morbius, it was just, they're just ugly looking comics. I don't know, man. Incredibly Strange Wrestling. It's the Chingona. I think that's a bad word. Maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, I guess the premise of this is it's like a Gearhead, but for girls. I don't know. I did a similar thing with the magazine I put out. I had the Sophisticated, and then I had one that was supposed to be more for girls called Sling Rave Curvette. Where is the article on Poison Ivy? Oh, there it is. 50. Yeah, conversation with Poison Ivy and Lux Interior. Yeah, yeah, they were into all of this culture, and they had a huge record collection and comic book collection, and Anyway, Lex died, and Ivy just retired from music and has kind of disappeared. And there are rumors that she lives in some Buddhist community and became a Buddhist, and there's other people just say she sold all her a lot of the stuff that she had. But she kept her records, and I don't know. Here's another copy of Gearhead with Bridget Bardot. Guitar Wolf was a Japanese Ramones kind of band. The Trash Women were like a girl version of the Trash Men that had that were famous back in the early to mid 60s, mainly for Surfin' Bird. But trust me, Surfin' Bird was not their only great song. They were. It's got weird stuff like here. There's a little. I guess it's supposed to be a paper doll that you cut out and a little stand-up of Bridget Bardot that's stapled in the magazine. It's kind of a cool thing. Yeah. And the tiki culture became big too. There's an ad for Dionysus Records. So, I'm into all this shit. I've always been into all this shit. And I don't know. Yeah, the tiki culture, hot rod culture, everything. Well, it's basically a lot of stuff that had been forgotten by people. Are these in order? No. Here's issue 2. The one with Poison Ivy was 3, and okay. This is the first issue of Gearhead. I have them completely out of order. This is the second issue. I don't know how many issues there were, but I only have 3. There's Gearhead 3. Oh, the Head Coatees were a great band out of England or Ireland or somewhere where they drink a lot. Could be Scotland. Yeah, Francois Hardy was one of those French girl singers I was referring to earlier. Yeah, and then of course Tura Satana, who was in Faster Pussycat Kill Kill, still around, and she was out signing stuff because Russ Meyer was another thing that became real big. People discovered his movies once VHS came out. So Tura or Bust, she was a Japanese or half Japanese stripper that played the main villain of 3 villain. There were 3 villains, girl villains, that were the stars of Faster Pussycat Kill Kill. I mean, they were supposed to be villains in theory, but they were the heroes, Oh, man, this is my friend wrote this. The Claudine Longet story is written by my friend Randy. That's my friend Randy that gave me his entire Avengers collection a few years back. They even have a little tattoo for you stapled in here. Man, I forgot that Randy wrote for this magazine. This is so incredible. All right, so now let's move back in time to March of 1954, Motor Trend magazine. The smell of this old magazine. It's got a subscription label. I like how they just slap it on haphazardly. I guess if they put it down here, it would cover words, but I don't know why it's up there. This was R.E. Alexander and Son, 3704 Abrams Road in Dallas, Texas. So if you want to do a little search on your phone for 3704 Abrams Road in Dallas, Texas, see if that building's still there where this magazine was once sent. I guess it's a business. Alexander and Son. I don't know what kind of business that would be, but anyway, it's got all the great the ads in the back. It's it's got the girls with the cars. It's people in the 90s, and I guess I was part of it because I was putting out my own magazine and I was totally in with that culture. People are trying to bring all this back, the 50s and 60s car culture. Oh, and monsters were part of it too. You know, that was, it's all part of this grand thing that I love. The sound stopped in the other room. I was recording Alex Jones. It must be over. I better go. Fix that. I'm recording Alex Jones' show from Friday. I record these shows onto DVD-R because you never can tell what's going to happen in the future. And I like to have physical copies of things. That's how I am. Let's see. Man. So anyway, my philosophy is that all of this is part of one culture. And if you read interviews or listen to interviews with Lux Interior and Poison Ivy of the Cramps, they agree with me. And I like that, and I like when people agree with me. No, that it's all one thing. Let me explain here. Let me start this. I'm going to record. We subscribe to this David Nino Rodriguez channel, Nino's Corner TV on Rumble. And he's this ex-boxer from El Paso, and he does all this. He came out, kind of exposed horrible shit he was seeing at parties he went to, and how horrible the elite people are. And he became kind of a hero among the underground movement of people. Okay, so anyway, so I'm recording something. Anyway, okay, so here's the thing. My philosophy is these comic books and rock and roll records and 1950s coolness and Planet of the Apes and monster toys and old horror movies and science fiction movies and exploitation movies and rock and roll and drive-in movies and 50s culture and jukeboxes and the creature from the Black Lagoon and the Munsters and pinball machines and aluminum Christmas trees and Frankenstein and Rat Fink hot rod culture and Aurora model kits and even into the 70s Frankenberry and monster cereals. This is all part of the same culture, and I don't want this to only be a comic book channel, and it can't be just a comic book channel because I'm into all of this stuff, and I can't just oh, look at how wonderful this is. Graphic Man came up with this. He's taken Nightmare magazine, and he's got he changed it to Betty and Veronica. How about that? And look at this DC Marvel crossover that Graphic Man was responsible for. It's midnight, the witching hour. And she's saying, "It's 12 o'clock, dear. We're safe from the Thing." And he's changed it into the Marvel Thing. Fantastic. Thing is my favorite superhero. A lot of people say Batman, but that's so unoriginal. Anyway, there's Howard Hawks' The Thing, another Graphic Man creation. He's going to be selling these posters he's created, framed, at a comic book convention coming up in November, I think. Anyway, back to I've been promising to show these hot rod magazines for a while. I think Whip It Lass in England was wanting to see more of them, and when people request things, I got to get to the post office to mail off the. I've got to get the address from Gotham City Comics. I'll show you again. I traded him for some books, and now I see there's another book coming out. So maybe I can do another trade with him for some other books that he's got. Maybe I'll do another painting for him if he wants, because tomorrow DC's putting out a replica of Action Comics #1. One of the things he traded me for was the replica of Detective Comics 27 that came out a few weeks ago, and I just don't have any comic store that's close by. And an hour and a half is not that horrible a drive to go to Des Moines for me to go to a comic store, but it's a horrible drive when you've got a president like Biden that brings the price of gasoline up so high by signing, within hours of becoming president, immediately nixing a pipeline of gas coming in. But of course, it's all Putin's fault, right? Anyway, this was a blank cover. All it had was Mad Balls versus Garbage Pail Kids, and I hope I did a good job. People are saying it's a good job. My wife loved it, and she took a picture and posted it on Facebook, and all her friends were saying it's great. But anyway, the idea is that this is a Dracula Garbage Pail Kid, and he's throwing shit at Mad Balls attacking. My wife was saying, well, the Mad Balls really should have more color, and I can't really tell that he's throwing poop, that he's holding. And I said, well, you know, I maybe that's true. And then there's a coating I could put on this called Mod Podge. I just found some in the garage last night, and I don't know if I should do that or not. That would give this a slick appearance. But anyway, this is a life-size Garbage Pail Kid that's vomiting, and this was a Gotham City Comics exclusive. Only the Gotham City Comics ones have this little place here to put the name of the guy. Anyway, this is what the book looks like inside. I had no idea that Dynamite had gotten the rights to do Mad Ball and Garbage Pail Kids. I know they're pushing Garbage Pail Kids nowadays in stores, like if you go to Target, you know, but I didn't know they were bringing back, there's the little Dracula guy. I didn't know they were bringing back Mad Balls, but I actually have some Mad Balls. And Garbage Pail Kids was like the next generation of... well, when I was a kid, what was popular was wacky packages, and then Garbage Pail Kids came about 10 years later. But it's a lot of the same artists did. Wacky packages were so great. You know, I can't think of anything. I love that shit so much. In 3rd and 4th grade, it was wacky packages. The feeling of opening a wacky package pack. I can't even explain it. I can't explain it unless you're my age and just... It was unbelievable. And what I was seeing through time. There was the work of Norman Saunders in front of me, who had done Mars Attacks before I was born, who had done pulp covers, you know, when my dad was a young man. I hear about, you know, all I can think about is this shit. Well, I hear about this wonderful shit. Shit is not a bad word to me. Shit just means people say, look at all this shit. Yes, isn't it wonderful? When I hear that Queen Elizabeth was coronated in 1953 or 52, I'm thinking, wow, EC Comics were on the stand then. It's like, I can't hear a date without thinking of what cool culture existed then. EC Comics was always a big part. And yeah, I just love all this shit. Okay, here's Hot Rod magazine from December of 1958. And to see these car trophies, I had a trophy like this, but much taller. It was like real tall, and it did not come here in the move. Now I don't know if it was stolen in the move, or it was just thrown away. I can't account for it, but it is not here because it's so tall. It's like 2.5 feet tall. It's maybe 3 feet tall. That I've opened every box. I would see it. And someone also took the fucking Pebbles Flintstone doll, and I look on eBay and I see some, but they don't have the bone in the hair. And the bone in the hair is the whole fucking point. It's what's the coolest thing about it. Because just wearing a bone in your hair is a cool thing. There were girls in bands that did that back during the 90s because, Pebbles and Bam Bam, in the early 70s, when Pebbles was a teenage girl, she still had the bone in her hair. It's a cool look. You have red hair with a bone. It's just, I can't explain why it's a cool look. Here's Pontiac. In case my friend Gerald's watching, he's obsessed with Pontiacs. I don't know. I don't know how many of my friends watch this channel. He doesn't get on the computers very often. He's someone that exists in the past like I do, but even more so in that he kind of is not a computer guy. Yeah, another magazine that I loved as a little kid, because my older brother read it, because it was called Model Railroader, and I have a whole box of them upstairs. He subscribed to it. And I thought it was fascinating looking at all those model railroad layouts. I mean, I've got a place now that's big enough I could have a model railroad layout, or put out the slot cars and just on a table. And oh, there's a UPS truck pulling up. Did my wife order something? He's stopping. Let's see, is he bringing something to us? Look at this guy. He's either bringing something to me or to the people across the street. What could it be? I don't recall ordering anything, but my wife may have ordered something. Let's see what happens. UPS, ladies and gentlemen. It's going in the truck, pulling something out. What could it be? Here's Hot Rod from April '61. Yeah, he's coming here. Let me see what I got. Hold on. Here he comes up to the steps. Thank you. Yes, it's for my wife. Or what it is. Oh, I see. Nothing fascinating. She's gonna dye her hair, and she needs these gloves to do that. So put those there. Let's look at a few more hot. Let's see what else we got in here. Now, I think this magazine is still put out today. You can find this. What year is this? This is a more modern version of what we're looking at. Because I mean, there's still people into all this. It's just this doesn't tie it in with the comic book and rock and roll culture. Well, a little bit. You know, there's a lot of these girls that, but a lot of them are have complete full sleeve tattoos and stuff. And this is from. Damn. I'm just trying to find a year. But yeah, a lot of this kind of neo, new pinup kind of stuff. But yeah, oh, actually, it does have. I mean, see, it ties it in. See, there's the Bride of Frankenstein. She's green. She's got she's driving with a tiki guy. It's got fang marks in her neck. So it haunted beach house, tiki kind of beach house in the background. So it all is part of. That's actually a pretty good pinup. Um, okay, whatever, dude. There's another pinup that looks like an old style. Oh, I know the guy that has this car. It's Texas Lone Star. That car. The guy I bought that Seaberg jukebox from. That's he. That's his car. But what fucking year is this from? I can't. My eyes are getting bad, real bad. Um, oh man, this is 2006. See, that's already quite a while back. 2006 was the year that I bought that jukebox. So he may not even have that car anymore, but I remember seeing that car there at his shop. He restored jukeboxes there. Um, 6 to 16. That's like 16 years ago, man. So this, I think this magazine's still put out though. I don't know. And there used to be this magazine. I pick it up at the gas station near my house called Old Car Trader. I think it's a read. Is this a national mag? I don't think they publish it anymore. Shit, this is from 19. Damn. 1995, July 1995. And what it is, it's the exact same size as a comic book, so I would store them in comic book boxes, but it just shows, no, it's all over the country, so this must have been all over. It's like, here's a car in Oklahoma that you could have gotten for $9,900, a 1963 Chevy 409 SS convertible, and I just like to look at it just for fun to see what was out there. My dream has always been to get a bullet bird, like a 61 to 63 Thunderbird. I always thought, especially a convertible, but that's the closest that you could come to really having a Batmobile. Yeah, I mean, this was a big, here's Hot Rod Cartoons, July of 1969. There were a lot of these magazines that were for the hot rodders that were black and white comics. There was one called Car Tunes, one called Drag Tunes, I think. There's one just about surfing. And these were, I mean, they weren't as much fun as reading Mad Magazine. And the earlier, the better. You know, if you get these from really the mid 60s, they're better. By 69, they weren't as good. But this one's in astoundingly good condition. I don't even think that cartoons is listed on mycomicshop.com. I'm not sure, but um, yeah, I don't know. Rod and Custom was really that. This one goes back to the 60s and maybe 50s. Yeah, established 1953. This is a more current issue, 2004. Yeah, May 2004 is current to me. But I think they still put this out. A lot of magazines aren't even published anymore because magazines don't exist anymore, it seems like. Why is this in here? November 2000. Oh, it's because it has Lindsay Lohan on the cover. Back, believe it or not, in the early days of Lindsay Lohan, before she turned into a train wreck, I would sometimes buy magazine covers because she was on the cover. But I'm going to take that out of the box to fit more Hot Rod magazines in here. Then I think I'll go in the other room and I'll show. I got lots of these. I'm going to show some comic books too, just for fun, man. Okay, when she first started in Disney movies, I thought, what would be really cool is to make the story of Leslie Gore and have her starring as Leslie Gore. But then she turned into an absolute awful train wreck of a person. Oh well. Let's see. Last time we were looking at the Warlord, the DC comic. Hold on a second. Yeah, I gotta find. I guess I could buy a package to send this comic book to Gotham City Comics at the post office. I should have been saving some of these packages, boxes I've been getting. But now I need one to send something. All right. I found a few other magazines in another box we could look at before we go back in the other room and look at comics. And shit, low battery. How is that? I've got a low battery problem. All right, we're gonna need to go in the other room and plug in the phone to get some electricity. Okay.
She's doing because she tweets at a timestamp, and you go take that timestamp into the Q drops, and it's like or it's like Foundation.
All right. So anyway, this has been kind of a philosophical episode where I'm kind of telling you Oh, the lighting in here is much better. And I'm not using a ring light. I didn't use a ring light in the other room either. I'm just starting to use natural sunlight. See, this is the lighting source that I'm using. And I'm just using a regular iPhone. I'm using the tripod that Captain Strangelove sent me. Shit. Let's see, this is what that Mad Balls versus Garbage Pail Kids looked like before I destroyed it. This is the one he sent me to keep for my own collection. This, back in the old country, in Texas, in Fort Worth, Texas, once a year around April, late April, they had something called the Pate Swap Meet. And it was at the Texas Motor Speedway. In the parking lot, they would have all these vendors set up outside selling car parts, and some would be selling magazines, records, and signs, and just everything for car culture and cool culture. I remember getting this there. Let's take a look at this. Fossiloy, the finest of all piston ring metals. That's kind of a cool cover.
So in all due respect, Alex Jones, he doesn't know what.
Yeah, there's tons of magazines.
And if he did, show me the receipts, because I've got more receipts than he does regarding Q, and the absolute.
This is a more technical magazine. It has great ad art. I love advertisements. That's part of my joy in reading old comics, is looking at the advertisements. To me, that's 50%, sometimes more than 50% of the fun. So when these people like Glendonnaland reprint these old public domain comic books, it's great, but I'm thinking, well, what about the ads? Same thing with these giant archive editions and what are those giant heavy books called? The omnibuses, the omnibuy. They don't reprint ads either, although there are some new ones that reprint EC Comics with the original ads, and PC art books. They reprint the 1950s horror comics with the original ads, and that's great. And they'll even sometimes have the covers on slick paper, and then the comic pages on more newsprint looking paper inside these hardcover books. So they get it. The omnibuses, at least they reprint the letter pages, which were important, especially in the early Marvel comics, to get a sense of the excitement being generated among the kids reading these comics. And then you can see in like Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man number 7, I think it is, there's a letter from a teenage Buddy Saunders who'd later go on to form Lone Star Comics and now mycomicshop.com. And here's a letter from that idiot that wrote Game of Thrones in this issue of Fantastic Four or whatever. Maybe Game of Thrones is great. I watched. My wife wanted to watch that series. We watched the first episode or two, and something happened where and then she blames me. Well, I wanted to watch that whole show, and I can't get you in one place to watch it. But I get this sense that they just, I don't know, maybe it's great. Everyone tells me it's great. Some of the people that tell me it's great are people I can't really trust. But here's Gearhead number 13. I just found another copy in another box here, because I have several boxes labeled Hot Rod magazines. I forget who this model is. I remember her from somewhere. But see, there's record reviews. There would never be record reviews in the 50s and 60s Hot Rod magazines, because it was just only directed towards cars. But by this point, in the 90s, people realized it's overall cultural movement. People into those cars are into a certain kind of music, and they usually like comic books, and they usually like girls, or the girls into it usually like guys with pompadours, you know, and their sleeves rolled up and all that. And Von Franco.
They're causing more confusion.
And then there started to be art galleries dedicated to this kind of art, like La Luz de Jesus Gallery in Los Angeles, which I believe the guy that was the curator of this art gallery was Elvez, who was the Mexican Elvis, is how he billed himself. And if you look up Elvez, which is Spanish for the king, I think Vez means king. No, that, or is Ray. I don't know. But anyway, he was a great Elvis impersonator, but he was hilarious, and he had the Elvettes behind him, these girls. It was a great show. I saw him in person several times. So anyway, lots of fun. I keep finding copies of Alter Ego all over the place. I'm trying to consolidate them all into a couple of boxes. I didn't realize I had this many copies of it, but for years I'd go into Lone Star Comics. I'd look at all the new comics on the rack. Okay, it wasn't anything I wanted, and then they had like one copy of this because they didn't order many because they knew that the idiots that buy the comics off the rack don't want this. And there's like one person in the world that would come into their store that would want it, and it would always wind up being me. Of course, a lot of comic stores won't even carry these because they don't sell. And I'm thinking, do I need to subscribe? Do they have subscriptions? I looked up Tomorrow's Publications the other night. Yeah, because like on Four Color Fossils on last Wednesday, Breen was showing these great books that he'd just gotten, and he'd just gotten 3 magazines from Tomorrow's, and I was thinking, shit, how am I going to get those? All right, that's great. Here's Mad from April '69. Who needs you?
I want my audience to eat the meat and throw away the bones. Take what they want from the interview and throw away the rest. There are a lot of
all right. There's the Beat Generation. This one cop looks back, comes back, and we forgot to knock him. But he wasn't even doing anything. He was just sitting, but he looks wrong. Oh, why? There's always people that had to fold their fold in. You can already tell it's going to be a Charlie Brown, Snoopy, Lucy psychedelic deal, which would cause creases. What I always did is I would just kind of do this with it. I would just kind of do it like, I would kind of hold it like this and kind of squint, and I could see because I didn't want to fold, I didn't want to have a crease. But this is not my copy. This came out when I was 4. I was not buying Mad in April of '69. But usually, a lot of times when you buy Mads, they're going to have that problem. Oh well. So, whatever.
I think that's admirable, and I think the only.
Sorry, I'm not even showing you what I'm looking at. It's a Mad magazine, ladies and gentlemen.
Are they promising?
I'm just enjoying it.
Are they promising something that you can't?
Here's a copy of Carcraft from 1958. That's a great cover. It's a little digest size magazine. Look at that. Okay, let's finish looking at these Warlord books so I can get them back upstairs, because I got too many boxes down here. Okay, if you watched last time, Not last time. Last time was a live stream. It was the time before that. I showed you this, the very first appearance of the Warlord, which was DC's answer to Edgar Rice Burroughs. And here's Warlord number 1.
Another example is this Real Raw News that has these very detailed, explicit.
Here's Warlord number 7, so I'm missing 2 through 6. If you have 2 through 6, I'd be amenable to trades or whatever. I don't have much money, but there's a comic book convention coming up in Des Moines on Saturday. I was talking to Stanley J. Kirby on Instagram. That's his moniker, but he lives not too far from me here. And he said, maybe we can meet up at that convention. I'll have to see if I've got enough money. And I was thinking the same thing, man. I don't have any money for that convention. I have a full tank of gas, but I'm able to get a full tank of gas, and it lasts me over a month, I found, because everything is like right close. If you watched last episode and saw me driving around, you could see everything's just like walking distance. This is 10. See, it's fun stuff. There's cool. There's that Farrah Fawcett poster. Farrah Fawcett Majors. Rocky, Linda. Oh, look at that Linda Carter one. Are these T-shirt designs? No, posters. I never saw that Linda Carter poster. That's pretty great.
And are they telling you something that can't be verified? And what is their, like, how long have they been at this? Right? Did they come out of the blue?
There's a special letter from DC.
Have they made
Important notice, applications are now being taken for the following chapters of the DC Superstars Society. 1. Batman. 2. Black Lightning. 3. DC Battlestars. 4. The Flash. 5. Green Arrow, Black Canary. 6. Green Lantern. 7. Justice League. 8. Justice Society. 9. Legion of Superheroes. 10. Shazam. 11. Superman. 12. Wonder Woman. Send a long, stamped, self-addressed envelope with your name, address, and the chapter you prefer to DC Superstars Society, P.O. Box 116, Radio City Station, New York, New York, 10019. You will receive a detailed application form explaining the DC Superstars Society, the items in your chapter's membership package, and your special chapter questionnaire testing your knowledge of your favorite DC superstars. Each chapter is different, so select your favorite. Please allow up to 8 weeks for a response. Do you have any idea what that is? I don't know. Oh, I always loved these reprints of the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer comics from the 50s. I don't have any of the original 50s Rudolph comics, but I always loved the reprints because it's just so beautiful and cute, you know. It's really neat. Okay, so that's Warlord 10. Here's Warlord 11. I think I showed all these last time.
I said, is Jesus coming? Yeah, I think he is. Am I going to sit around on the couch?
Showcase 97 presents Power Girl.
I'm going to try to make my world the best I possibly can, right? And I'm going to try to do as best I can. So if he does show up, he's going to be like, hey, way to go, man. You know what I mean?
Here's number 12.
I'm not going to feel embarrassed.
How could... These are just so great. I was telling you this the last time we were looking at these, how great these are.
So, and I think your criticism of that and Adele's criticism of that is valid. However, if you know the whole scope of it, you realize that that's not the case. And
here's number 13. What have they done with the Warlord character in DC? Have they brought him back at all? Oh man, I could go for that right now. Shit, this comic book's making me hungry. It's been so long. You're gonna laugh at me. Since I had Burger King, the place I loved. I have these sacred, hallowed memories of a place called Burger Chef. And Burger King is the closest to what it tasted like at Burger Chef, which I guess is because their burgers are charbroiled, but it's not as good. Burger Chef is all gone, out of business. I would go there in Hampton, Virginia. They had the coolest stuff that they would give you with your meal, like a giant, super glow-in-the-dark, glowing green frisbee that said "Incrediburgable" on it. And I don't know where my childhood one is, but I think I got one off of eBay about 15 years ago, and that's downstairs. I should show you that sometime. We should test the glowing properties, like when we tested the Simpsons Radioactive Man glow-in-the-dark cover on, and it really did glow on the air. Here on the Garage Warlord show, you can go back in the archive for that. Here's 14.
The way I see it, instead of Trump signing insurrection, moving forward, step back.
See, even the cool people say moving forward. David Nino Rodriguez just said moving forward. Everybody says it. Mel K, I like her. Mel K is a conservative, a wonderful woman on Rumble. She used to be on YouTube, but she got kicked off of YouTube.
This is a red pill.
Okay. 15. Holocaust. Again, a word that has changed meanings since the late 70s. And I guess I figured the word always meant the Holocaust in World War II, but I think it didn't become that until, I say this often because I see this word all the time. Here's another copy. I see this all the time in these old comics, Holocaust, and now it just means one thing. In the past, it's been a fiery apocalypse disaster. But there was a primetime network miniseries called Holocaust about the whole thing that happened in World War II in the late 70s. And I think after that it became part of the popular consciousness. Like the word gay. It's all over all these Christmas songs and old rock and roll songs, and just meant happy, and now has a different meaning. And a lot of people are not even aware that it used to have another meaning. It's just one of those things. Jeez Whiz. His cod piece has a little face on it. It's just, if you look at that, is it a skull? Here comes, yeah, look at that. It's got a little face right where his crotch is. Here comes Drew the dog. I hear her coming. She's hanging out a lot upstairs now. There's Drew the dog. Hey Drew, what's up? I bet she's hungry for lunch. She's loving the bed upstairs so much that she doesn't come down much anymore. Oh, I gotta get this. That's what I need to do. I've got to get the. I'm just thinking aloud. I've got to get the damn. Gotta get her. Yeah, she's getting water. I gotta feed her. I gotta get this book off to Arizona, to Gotham City Comics. But I've got to contact him on Instagram and make sure I have the exact address, whether he wants me to send it to the shop or to his home address. I don't know. 23. There's 26. 27. Another 27. Looks like I'm missing 28. Here's 29. Another copy of 29.
I feel like that's it because I've talked to a few people
Oh man, they got Cerebus,
I'm kind of a border
a three-headed dog from Hades, appearing in this issue.
on both sides. So, and I've heard the same.
Wild and Crazy T-shirts, $1.95.
You're actually right about that.
The ads weren't as cool
And I want to show
and as the late 70s and into the 80s. They just never were as cool as they were in the 60s and 50s. You know, just well, that's kind of a cool ad. Superboy's hawking his two books.
what is your
Oh, this might appeal to some of you. Back when Star Wars was still cool,
that he
two-page spread of Star Wars toys.
doesn't make any sense.
This is
Very suspect.
probably pre-Empire Strikes Back. What is the date on this?
It was a
Damn, I need glasses.
earlier, if I understand correctly.
January 1980. Yeah, it was just a few months away.
There you go.
Empire Strikes Back came out in May of 1980.
Edited and
So everyone was anticipating that. Oh, look, I can tell I bought this at half price. I'm sorry, I can tell I bought this at Lone Star Comics because look, up next to the 32, you see that little pencil mark? It's a G. That means this is in good condition. And Lone Star Comics did that for quite a while. They would write the condition on the comic. So I've got the first appearance of Black Panther, Fantastic Four, with a little VF, very fine. And the second part of the Galactus trilogy, and there's a little pencil mark. It's like, finally, employees at Lone Star Comics finally said, hey, we shouldn't be doing this. We shouldn't be writing the condition on the comic. And finally, Buddy Saunders agreed.
Just try to
And they
try to just ease through it, try to get through it, right?
they stopped doing it.
And
So if you ever see a little pencil mark like that, you can know that this comic was once sold in the
enjoy that experience as best we can.
Dallas-Fort Worth. I think they even made them up into Oklahoma. Maybe. Did they get? I don't know if they got up to Oklahoma, because then it could be Lone Star Comics, right?
This whole thing is a show.
It's like Six Flags over Texas. Now there's Six Flags parks in other parts of the country, but the Six Flags name doesn't mean anything. Because when Six Flags first started in 1962 in Arlington, Texas, it was a historical theme park. There were, because I don't know if you know much about Texas history, but there have been 6 flags that have flown over Texas. Texas has been owned by 6 groups, countries, and that each had their own flag. And of course, the Native Americans didn't have flags, or else there'd be other flags. There'd probably be several dozen flags over Texas. But anyway, there was Spain, there was France, there was Mexico, and then France, Mexico. There was, of course, the United States has a, but there's the Texas flag, because when Texas is part of Spain, and Mexico broke away from Spain, and then Mexico was their capital was down in Mexico City, and they had all this wilderness basically up where Texas is, and they needed people to settle it. So they invited people from the United States to come and settle in this new territory. They said the only deal is you got to learn how to speak Spanish, and you've got to convert to Roman Catholicism. And a lot of the people that came in said, fuck that, they're not doing that. But they came in and settled, and then these English-speaking United States people didn't like just the tyrannical government in Mexico, and didn't like being forced to convert religions. So there was a war fought, and then Texas became its own country for more than a few years, and then it became part of the United States. Oh, and then then it was one of the states that split away from the United States. So the Confederate there was the Confederacy too. So when Six Flags opened, and all through the 70s and 80s, and maybe even they had, when you first walked in, there were all Six Flags. Of course, now the Confederate flag is forbidden. So now at Six Flags, they just fly Six Flags. They're all the United States flag. But and you don't really see as much the individual areas. There was a Mexico section, and they had a Fiesta train that was designed by Sid and Marty Krofft that was really cool, and a sombrero ride. And then in the French section, you had a version of the Disney Jungle Cruise where you'd go through this river, and you'd have animals coming at you and Indians trying to stab you, and there'd be a whirlpool with a hand sticking out, and there'd be a Spanish fort shooting cannonballs at you, and the water would splash all around where the cannonballs were hitting. You'd see the flash of the cannons, and it was a really cool thing. That was Drew is back behind me. That was you see her there? Anyway, then they had a Spain section. They had the United States. It was more of a modern section, and the rides in those sections reflected that culture. And over the years, they've kind of done away with that. And then there was a Six Flags over Georgia, but that didn't. The flag, it was just, they spun off, but it didn't really mean anything, except for Texas code. Here's where they're introducing Iraq. Or Iraq. I pronounced it Iraq, I think, as a kid. Actually, I never pronounced it. I just bought the comics and read them. I guess I pronounced it in my head, but I don't think I've ever said that name aloud until just recently doing this show. Introducing Eerie, Son of Thunder, the greatest sword and sorcery superstar of all, in a special free 16-page preview comic in here. He never became a big star, but they made a toy of him, which makes me think that I think they were exclusives to Kmart. I think maybe He-Man became a big hit, and then Kmart or whatever company was selling toys through Kmart wanted to have a He-Man line. So I think they went to DC and said, "Here, the Warlord, that'd be cool. Can you come up with some other characters?" So I think they came up with Eerie, that was really cool, and Orion, Lord of Atlantis, and some other comics. And then I think they made these really shitty toys of them. I mean, the toy of Warlord doesn't look anything like this. It looks like a little squat hunchback creature. But yeah, there's the Iraq. Very, very great stuff. It was a great comic. I'm not sure if that's what I'm telling you is true, that it was just created to sell toys. Oh, look, how about that? Nudity in a code-approved comic. I mean, that don't show anything, but yeah, it was written by Roy Thomas, and Ernie Colon was the art. So they do this sometimes in DC Comics in this era. They'd introduce some new title as a feature, and so that's 48. So looks like I have several copies of 48. I don't know if that's valuable or enough people like Eerie as much as I do.
I don't think so. No. I'll tell you why.
But there was a guy that came into a comic store once and was talking to me, and he says he was a Native American. He says, "Are there any good Native American superheroes?" And I said, "Well, there was one in X-Men, but I think they killed him like instantly, like in the first issue he was in." And there was Scalp Hunter, and there's this guy, and maybe there was a guy or two in the DC War comics, but and he really liked the Eerie comics. He was like, "Yeah, this is pretty cool." But
yeah, right.
So on this type of production.
Oh, and then there was Claw the Unconquered. I remember him. They got him in a backup feature. He had his own comic for a while.
Push in. We're gonna get a shot of Pelosi. We're gonna come to you in a minute. So get in position.
Here's the several copies of this. Here's the book length 50th issue epic. True, I know how you feel, man. Here's the Saga of Dragon Sword. I gotta feed this dog, man. You are hungry, aren't you? Hold on. Let me get these books back in the box, and I'll get you some delicious grub. I need to get some myself, man.
You see me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So you have
Okay.
an establishing shot that you're setting up.
Well,
That's going to capture everything you want to capture.
you ate your breakfast, I see. That's good. Oh, man. Oh, man. Oh, okay, let's get you some food.
Script a whole bit, and then you're like, okay, inside, moving in for close, moving in for over the shoulder. So now I'm going to come in, I'm going to go over the shoulder of one of the actors on a close up of the other actor, right? And then they're going to do the same thing over again, right? Okay, cut, we got that. Let's move to the over the shoulder the other way. Now we're going to get the other actor, and they're going to do the same thing all over again, right? And so you do all those shots, and then
Guys, would you like me to do a live stream where I answer questions? My wife thought that was a good idea. I don't know if anyone has any questions. I pretty much tell you everything on the regular show. I don't know. If you have some questions, I'll do a live stream. Oh man, I'm starting to get weak. I am hungry. Let's finish this show up and then let's see, it's 12:30. My wife didn't even get to sleep until, I don't think she got to sleep until 6 o'clock this morning, so I need to probably, I don't want to go out and get food for myself without getting her some food. Okay, I gotta finish these Warlord books. I don't know if you guys even care about Warlord. If you care about Warlord, put some comments down below, let me know. Subscribe, ring that bell. You can ring my bell.
And I'm saying
I've got 411 subscribers now. It's like I got to 400, and then I got 11 subscribers like real quick. And people always have told me, once you get to a certain point, then the subscribers just start happening more quickly. I don't know if that's true. That "have a nice day" was an annoying expression. I guess people still say it.
But they missed about 4 frames. Okay? Not a big deal.
But is it as bad as what is the expression I make fun of?
Okay?
Moving forward.
Okay?
But yeah. No, there's another one.
Okay?
I don't remember. There's so many things that annoy me. All right. You know, someone was writing about all the things that Jesus went through during the, everything they did to him before the crucifixion, that they